I'm joined now by the man who can explain all of this to us, the founder and CEO of Advisors Academy, David Scranton. David, it's so good to have you back on the forum.
Well, it's great to be back here. Thank you.
And I got to tell you, as the years are passing, I was talking to some of my high school classmates. We're going, gee, you know, the time is getting on by. Not that we're going to retire at 65, but that we're trying to make plans. In your opinion, should all retirees have a withdrawal policy statement, a kind of plan?
I think it's a great thing to have simply because people are living longer and longer. It used to be that we had a rule in the 1990s saying you could withdraw 5% per year of your asset base and you probably would never run out of money. The year 2000 hit, the tech bubble burst, and there were a lot of people who thought they could take 5% per year safely, and it didn't come to fruition. They've depleted a lot of principal. Then the rule dropped to 4%. And recently, we've even seen studies using Monte Carlo analysis, which is back testing and statistical analysis, that even if somebody has what's traditionally considered a conservative portfolio, only 40% in the stock market, even with that level of conservatism, with people living longer and longer, there's still about a 20% chance that one could outlive their money taking only 4% a year.
Well, so when I heard this outline, David, I got to tell you, it reminded me of fire safety. You know, they say have a plan to get out of the house, or as we've said post 9/11, have a plan to meet up with your family, to plan for these circumstances and contingency. What is it? An ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure, but looking ahead in case economic calamity strikes. So what should we keep in mind about trying to assemble this, both in terms of longevity and the vagaries, the volatility of today's financial markets?
Well, I think the basic premise is that the more risk you take in your portfolio, in other words, the more you invest for growth in things like stocks or stock mutual funds instead of income, the lower the percentage that you can safely take annually. If you invest more conservatively in things that are designed to generate interest or dividends instead of growth, then as a general rule, you could take a slightly higher percentage and feel comfortable that you will not outlive your income.
We were talking about longevity earlier, and obviously that has to be something that figures into this, as you just pointed out. But given where we are demographically, with baby boomers aging into the process, and I think it's a little known fact, but when Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill sat down in the 1980s to, quote, reform Social Security, my generation, it's not 65. The retirement age, whether we like it or not, is going to increase. With that in mind, has this traditional notion of retirees in Florida and Arizona out of the working world completely, is that in the midst of changing before our eyes?
It depends. For the affluent, things haven't changed. Many still plan to have their primary home up north, wherever it might be, and they plan to have a winter home in some place like Florida or Arizona. But for many are planning to move somewhere in the middle, where they can enjoy all the climates and still do something that they're passionate about. You know, the retiree of years ago isn't the retiree of today, and certainly isn't the retiree of the future, who wants to still be active in the workplace in some way, shape, or form. And frankly, after what the markets have done over the last 14 years, might need to be still active to some degree.
So let me ask you about a fictional guy somewhere in his mid-50s who knows he's not going to be able to retire at 65 without all the specifics here. In general, to get on the right track to a withdrawal policy statement and a sane plan, what should that unnamed individual keep in mind?
Okay. Well, hypothetically speaking, that unnamed individual should realize that the most important years to try to prevent losses in a portfolio are the 10 years right before that hypothetical individual retires and the first 10 years of that individual's retirement. It's something called sequence of returns. And that's where, unfortunately, people who are planning to retire now have gotten hurt over the last 10 years, and people who retired 10 years ago might be even in more trouble. So I would say if someone's planning to retire in a 10-year time horizon, again, hypothetically speaking, you have to realize that the last 2 times the market took a 50% or so drop in recovery since the turn of the century, it took about 7 years for the drop to occur and then for the recovery. 7 years from peak to peak. So I would say that that person statistically probably only has 3 more years where they can afford to take risk, and then they've, at least at that point, they've got to kick the risk down a notch in their portfolio.
When I hear those 7 years, I think about the biblical story of Joseph. So there may be something to that, but we want to avert financial disasters of biblical proportion. And David Scranton, we very much appreciate your insights. And of course, your book that I have a copy of, Stop the Financial Insanity, How to Keep Wall Street's Cancer from Spreading to Your Portfolio. Gee, I know hypothetical individuals and a few real life guys who can benefit from that book. David, it's great to have you with us.
Great, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
You better believe it. So, what about retirement? You expect to get to take a powder at age 65 or no? What's the ideal retirement age in your mind? Why don't you let us know via Twitter? You can tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. There's also email. Our e-address does not require a stamp. Believe it or not, there was a hoax back during my days in Congress. Sometime I'll talk about. Connect to NewsmaxTV.com. And of course, there's Facebook, Facebook.com/Newsmax. When we come back, it's your turn. All your comments are coming up.